Thanks for joining me today on Cindy's Certified Recipes. Today I'll be showing you all my tips and tricks to make beautifully bronzed pretzel bites. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask that you help support my channel by hitting that like and subscribe, and then you can hit that notification bell and you'll get first dibs on all my upcoming videos. Now let's get to those pretzels and tip number one. So tip number one is a pretty big tip because, as you probably know with pretzels, you gotta boil them in an alkaline solution to get that Maillard reaction, to get all that beautiful bronze color when you cook them. And most pretzels you use lye, and that's kind of scary stuff at home. So the best way to do that is to substitute the lye with baking soda. And baking soda works perfectly good, but you can make it work even better by baking your baking soda. And yes, I said baking your baking soda. It wasn't a mistake. And so normally I have some on hand because if I'm going to bake some, I'm just going to do a bunch of it. And so you'll just plop some baking soda on a parchment, on a pan, and bake it in the oven about an hour at 300 degrees. And then you can just store it, and you can write on the bag, pretzel baking soda, or baked baking soda. And that'll be your baking soda to use for your pretzels. And what the baking does is it makes the baking soda even more alkaline than regular baking soda, so you'll get even more of that Maillard stuff going on with your pretzels and makes them extra bronze. So big tip on that. Anytime you're dealing with a recipe that has yeast, you want to make sure your yeast is good, especially if it's been sitting around in your pantry a while. So we're going to be doing that right now, and I got 3/4 cup of water here and 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar. Now we're just going to put that in there, and our 1 package of yeast. Regular yeast, it's not rapid rise. We're going to give that a stir. And I think the dark brown sugar gives it a little more flavor than light brown sugar. So another little tip there. Going to dissolve it up. And I like to put it also on a towel here because my countertop stays really cold. So I want to keep a little bit of warmth for that yeast to be happy. And I also like to put a little cover over it. And we're going to let this sit a few minutes till it's nice and foamy. I got my yeast here that I showed you earlier, and it's like super foamy. We're going to take a peek at that. It's like, it's making me laugh. It's so foamy. So we're going to get our other ingredients here, and we're going to start pouring them in the bucket here and get these pretzels going. We're going to start putting our ingredients here in the mixer and get that going. And there's very few ingredients going on here with these pretzels. And this makes just the right size batch for me and my husband, 'cause we can really pig out on these. So I like to do, a little bit of control in how many I make, but it makes a nice size. So we're going to start by pouring that super foamy, great smelling yeast into the mixing bowl. And this is 2 1/4 cups of bread flour, high gluten bread flour. Get in there. And because we put all that beautiful pretzel salt on top when we're done, I only like a generous pinch of kosher salt into the actual batter. Okay? And raise that up and start it going. Put it on a little slow just to get it mixed, and then I will put it up pretty high to knead the dough. There we go. And that is going to do that for 8 minutes. And you might have to occasionally wipe down the sides depending on your mixer. But this one should get all that flour off the sides. And when it has a nice tight ball and it's all nice and clean, we're going to come back and start shaping our pretzels. It's been 8 minutes. Our dough is all nice and kneaded in there. Gonna get this down here so you guys can see it and get it out of the bowl. There's just a little dab of flour. It's going to be slightly sticky on my fingies. There we go. Nice clean grab. Let's get this mixer out of the way. Not going to need him anymore. There we go. Here's our ball of dough, trying to stick to everything I got here. I leave a little more flour on my fingies. There we go. And we're just going to shape him into a general round, like that. And we're going to put a little oil, olive oil, in my bowl. And get that mixed all around there. Put our dough in there, spin it around, get it all covered in the oil because you don't want it sticking later on when it's all nice and rising. And I have a little Breville oven that's a perfect little proofer. And I got that set to proof. And I'm going to cover this up with a little bit of cling wrap. And we're going to put that in the proofer approximately an hour until your dough has doubled. And we will be right back with that. Time to check out our dough. Looking mighty pretty. Gonna pull that out. I'll put down the flour first. There we go. And I'm not going to play with that too much. I want it to stay kind of fluffy. And then we're just going to start pulling pieces off of there. And make our little pretzels. I don't want a ton of flour here. Just tap them lightly is better than I found than rolling it. Got a little extra piece there. And you want to keep them kind of pudgy. I think they're prettier when they come out of the oven and they're kind of fat. Instead of that, we'll use this. And we're just going to cut them in pieces. A little bigger is better than a little smaller. Place them on our parchment pan here. That's all there is to that. So we're just going to keep going through this dough. Last one. You want to make a lot of these. You can easily double, triple, quadruple the recipe. Like I said, I have to do very few of these because we'll just sit there and eat them all day long. Okay, there they are on the cookie sheet. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and they're going to go in the oven, in the fridge, to firm up for about 20 minutes. And what that does two things. It makes them easier to handle. Putting them from here into the boiling water, and it also reacts better to the boiling water. And at that point too, if you want to freeze some, let's say you made a huge batch, because let's just face it, you want fresh pretzels. So you can make them at this point, and after they come out of the fridge, that's the best point to freeze them. So then you can pick them up and freeze them, and then they're just ready to take out and warm up a little bit and bake as many as you want to eat. So we're going to get this covered in plaster wrap and into the fridge, 20 minutes. Here we go. And into the fridge they go. Okay, you guys. These are what they look like out of the fridge. So they've expanded a little bit and they've firmed up, which is very nice. And as you can see, I have 2 quarts of tap water boiling here. And this is the critical moment where you gotta add the baking soda, and I have another little additive to tell you about. And you gotta kind of play with the boiling of the water. It'll change a little bit. And so sometimes when I put in the baking soda, it'll foam way up. Sometimes it's a little delayed. So we'll see what happens today. But this is our 1/2 cup of that baked baking soda I told you guys about. So in that goes to the water. And give it a little mix. You'll get like little cakey things on the bottom that you see there. But it's all good. It will eventually all dissolve. The next item that's going in, that's going to make your water smell just like pretzels with that baking soda, is 2 tablespoons of honey. Here we go. Give that a little bit of a stir. And you'll see now it's this yellow color, but as you boil your pretzels, actually the more you boil, like you had a large amount, the darker and darker this gets. And the more it smells like pretzels. So it's very interesting. So I'm going to let that boil just about a minute or so. You want to keep it slightly more boiling than that. So I'm going to raise that up. I put in cold ingredients, so I just got to give it time to get back up to a little more of a boil. But too high of a boil and it'll foam up on you, and you don't want that. I have this little sieve handle here, or you can use a spider, anything that has like a little grit in there that they can drain off. And then I have a rack set up here with paper towels that I'm going to set them on. And I've found that doing this, well, there's a lot of mention as to how long you should boil your pretzels. And I find quicker is better. And there's a little thing that happens if you leave them in this alkaline solution too long, and they shrivel and they become like little stepping stones, and they will not fluff back up. So if they've reached that point, you might as well throw them away because they're kaput. So I find quicker in the bath is better, and I'll show you here in just a second. So I'm going to pile some onto here, like 4 or 5 at a time, and then dip them down. There's 4, in they go. And I'm going to keep moving them around in that bath. And they will get a little bigger. They'll expand a little bit, but then they'll actually deflate a little bit once you pull them out and put them on the cooling rack. And they already smell pretzely. So I'm just going to keep turning them a little bit. That's long enough. Out they come, onto the rack. Put that little normal in there. I'm going to keep doing that with the rest of my pretzels. Just put a few on here at a time into the bath. Move them around. They're very buoyant, so you got to keep pushing them down into that alkaline water, flipping them around. And this is where that Maillard reaction comes in, and it gives them this kind of slimy texture. That's what's gonna make them all nice and golden in the oven, and bronzy. And just so you know, and you're not surprised when you try this at home for the first time, it will make a very big mess out of whatever pot you use, but it's superficial, it cleans off very easily, but it will look pretty awful when you're done. Easy to clean. You'll notice my water here, as I keep going, it gets darker and darker brown. So actually it's beneficial when you make a huge batch, you just get more and more pretzely. And your dough, when I do big batches, by the time I get to the end of the batch, when they come out, they kind of look like chicken nuggets. They're so light brown. But that honey is really a nice additive. Gives them that extra bit of color. Plus a tad bit of extra flavor. You can do more at a time than I'm doing. This is just the amount that I'm comfortable dealing with at a time. Okay, out they come. Off goes the stove. And then we're gonna take these back over to the counter and put some egg wash on them and some pretzel salt. We got our pretzels back over here to the counter, and we're gonna start transferring them from their dripping rack here onto a baking sheet that has some parchment on there. And I'm just gonna lay them in a row. They will expand a little bit, but they won't connect together. And you'll notice that after they come out of the bath, they feel a little rubbery, and that's what you want. So I'm just gonna bring all these over, and they already smell very pretzely. It's very nice. There we go. So what I have here is just 1 egg yolk and 1 tablespoon of water, and that is going to be our egg wash. That's gonna help them get even more nice and golden. And I'm just gonna brush that over. You don't want to drown them, just a light coat. There we go. And this here is pretzel salt. And I went to the store, I went to several stores actually, looking for pretzel salt because it is made special. It's heat resistant, whereas you could use kosher salt, but it will dissolve a little bit in the heat of the oven, and it'll still make your pretzels salty, but it just won't look right, in my opinion. And you know I'm very particular. So actually when I go back to the story, and I was looking around, and I got this guy saying, "Hey, can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for pretzel salt." He goes, "Oh, I've not heard of that one. Let me go ask my manager." So I stood there waiting, and he comes back, he says, "My manager says there's no such thing as pretzel salt." I said, "Okay, thank you." Left and ordered it on Amazon. So, just in case you run into that, there is such a thing as pretzel salt. There we go. And as much salt or as little salt as you want on there, all right? And so now I have my oven already preheated to 400. These are ready to go in there, and it's like 10-15 minutes depending on your oven, and they're just going to be, they'll puff up and they'll be all nice and golden. These are so pretty, you guys. Look at these things. It just smells fantastic in here. So these have to cool a little bit, and then I'm going to transfer them over to the rack here and cool some more, and then we'll be back and we'll take a big bite and I'll show you the inside. Here's our batch of pretzels, you guys. They're so good. My husband and I are salivating. We can hardly wait to dig into them. So I'm going to take a bite. Chewy, delicious, everything you want in a pretzel. And you know what? A lot of people show these with cheese. You know what that is? Chocolate. And yes, I'm going to do this. The sweet with the salt. You gotta try it. Fantastic. Thanks for joining me today on Cindy Certified Recipes. These are utterly fantastic, and I hope you get a chance to try them. It's been great being here with you guys. Please don't forget to check out my playlists. I'm sure you'll find a ton of other recipes there you're going to enjoy. And please don't forget to hit subscribe and like. And we'll see you next time on Cindy Certified Recipes. If it's time tested, top-notch ingredients, and the talk of the table, it's Cindy Certified.